Hello, and welcome to the second webinar in our Radiation Safety and Wellness webinar series, Global Systems of Radiation Protection. We will discuss radiation protection practices in the nuclear power industry and the international agencies involved in radiation protection, especially those involved in addressing the radiation safety concerns raised by the war in Ukraine. I am Lynn McDonald, Liaison Scientist with the Radiation Safety Institute of Canada. I'll be joined today by Mike Haynes, health physicist and consultant with the Institute. Mandel Fraser from Power Yoga West in Prince Edward Island will lead us in our wellness segment beginning at 12:40 Eastern. Let's take a moment to go over the functionality of the Zoom meeting. We ask that during the presentation portion that the audio and video be from the presenters only. We have found that although you can access the audio through the computer or telephone, the quality of sound tends to be better when listening from a computer. If you have any technical difficulties, you can contact Maria Costa at 1-800-263-5803, extension 321. If you have questions arising from the content, please type them into the chat. As the webinar is only 40 minutes in length and is immediately followed by our wellness session, time may not permit for us to answer all of them during the webinar. The answers will be posted on our website, along with a link to the video recording and a copy of the slides. These will be found under Education Webinars on our website. I will be sending a confirmation of attendance email after the webinar and will include a link to the page with that communication. I will also include the topics covered and the length of time spent in the webinar, as some people have requested this to send to the professional association. Lastly, I have automatic closed captioning enabled in the slide presentation. If they are being blocked by your Zoom controls, you should be able to select a different way to view the webinar in Zoom, which makes them easier to see. The format for today will be a 15-minute presentation giving a quick overview of ionizing radiation, fission reactions, nuclear energy, international agencies you may hear of in the news and the relationship between them, our Canadian regulator, the CNSC, as well as the CRPA, and the systems of radiation protection. This will be followed by an interview of and Q&A with Mike Haynes, who has worked as a health physicist in the nuclear industry for over 30 years. As this is part of our ongoing radiation protection and wellness webinar series, the science portion will be followed by a 20-minute wellness session led by Mandel Fraser of Power Yoga West in Prince Edward Island. Radiation is energy traveling out from a source. In most general terms, energy is the ability to change matter. There are many different types of radiation which carry different amounts of energy and affect matter in a variety of ways. Ionizing radiation are those types of radiation which have enough energy to remove electrons from their atoms or molecules. Ionizing radiation includes fast-moving particles and high-energy photons from nuclear processes, alpha, beta, neutron, and gamma, and high-energy photons from human-made machines called X-rays. While they have heating effects like lower energy radiation does, these forms of radiation have additional biological risks. In large doses over a short period of time, they can result in radiation sickness. Exposure to ionizing radiation also leads to an increased risk of cancer. For more information on ionizing radiation, please see our previous webinars called Understanding Radiation and Health Effects to Exposure to Radiation. Some nuclear configurations are unstable in such a way that instead of just emitting an alpha or beta particle during decay, possibly followed by a gamma emission, the atom will split apart. This process is called fission. During this process, some of the mass of the atom is converted into energy. Large amounts of energy are released from a small amount of mass, which can be calculated using Einstein's theory of special relativity. In nuclear reactors, the most common fuel used is uranium. A specific isotope of uranium, U-235, undergoes fission by absorbing a thermal neutron to become uranium-236, which breaks apart, resulting in fast-moving fission fragments, neutrons, and fission gamma rays. The fission products can then go on to decay, releasing beta and/or gamma radiation. Each fission process releases about 200 megaelectron volts of energy. The fission fragments carry a great portion of the resulting energy in the form of kinetic energy, the energy of movement. Most of the kinetic energy is then dissipated as heat. The released neutrons can go on to cause fission and in other uranium atoms, depending upon different conditions. Nuclear reactors have been developed to use these two facts to generate electricity from the large amount of energy released from fission reactions. Within a nuclear reactor, the fission process is started so that a chain reaction of nuclear fissions occur. Components of the reactor permit for this chain reaction to be maintained and controlled. The resultant heat is used to produce steam, which is then in turn used to turn turbines to generate electricity. Although there are several different designs of nuclear reactors, most have these common components. Fuel, most typically uranium, but always an isotope that can undergo fission through some process. A moderator, which slows the neutrons which are released, as slow neutrons are more likely to induce further fission reactions. Control rods or blades, which can be inserted or removed from the area where the fission chain reaction is happening. The area where the fission chain reaction is happening is also known as the core. Coolant, which removes the heat from the core and carries it to the steam generator. A pressure vessel or pressure tubes, which contain the core, moderator, and coolant. The steam generator, the area where the heat is removed from the core, and then that is used to create steam, which is in turn used to turn turbines. This area contains a system of heat exchangers. Automatic shutdown systems triggered by independent parameters, and a containment structure to protect the whole system, which includes controlling access during normal operation and protecting everything exterior to it from radiation during operation or in the case of an emergency. The first nuclear reactor was developed as part of the Manhattan Project in World War II. Before this time, radiation protection was mainly the purview of scientific research organizations. With the development of technologies utilizing nuclear processes after the war, a system of international organizations involved in various aspects of radiation protection emerged. The relationship between them is summarized in this figure from the International Radiological Protection Association. Some of these are in the forefront of the news coming out of Ukraine with respect to the safety of its nuclear reactors. We will take a moment now to outline the roles of the highest level organizations shown. For more information on other organizations, please see our previous webinar, Regulatory Bodies and International Agencies. There are several organizations at the international level which are mainly involved in the scientific aspects of radiation protections, including the ICRU, UNSCEAR, and IARC. The International Commission on Radiation Units and Measurements, or ICRU, has a mission to develop and disseminate internationally accepted recommendations on radiation-related quantities and units, terminology, measurement procedures, and reference data for the safe and efficient application of ionizing radiation. UNSCEAR is the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation and reports to the UN General Assembly. It assesses global levels and effects of ionizing radiation and provides scientific basis for radiation protection. The International Agency on Research on Cancer, IARC, is a specialized cancer agency of the World Health Organization. The objective of IARC is to promote international collaboration in cancer research. Their mission in doing so is to prevent cancers around the world. The International Commission on Radiological Protection, or ICRP, focuses its work on the principles of radiation protection. It was established to advance for the public benefit the science of radiological protection, in particular by providing recommendations and guidance on all aspects of protection against ionizing radiation. The IRPA, or International Radiation Protection Association, describes themselves as the international voice of the radiation protection profession. It is an association of radiation protection professionals joining through national and regional radiation protection societies. They promote the worldwide enhancement of professional competence, radiation protection culture, and practice by providing benchmarks of good practice and encouraging the application of the highest standards of professional conduct, skills, and knowledge for the benefit of individuals and society. The IAEA is the International Atomic Energy Agency. The IAEA is widely known as the world's Atoms for Peace and Development organization within the United Nations family. It works as the world's central intergovernmental forum for scientific and technical cooperation in the nuclear field. The agency works with its member states and multiple partners worldwide to promote the safe, secure, and peaceful use of nuclear technologies. They are an independent agency with a special agreement with the UN, reporting annually to the General Assembly and sometimes the Security Council. Of all the organizations mentioned, it is the IAEA who you may hear of the most when the war in Ukraine encroaches on areas where nuclear power plants are located. This is due to their global role in nuclear safety and security. Outside the network of these international radiation protection organizations, but worthy of note as a source of information during this time, is the International Monitoring System, or IMS. Canada is a signatory to the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT, along with more than 180 countries worldwide. 172 of the signatories have ratified the treaty. To ensure that states are in compliance, a system of 336 monitoring stations is currently being constructed, with 303 installed and certified. They are located underground, underwater, and in the atmosphere around the globe. They monitor seismic, infrasound, hydroacoustic, and radionuclide activity. And while these are for the purposes of monitoring nuclear testing, they are mentioned now as their measurements are sometimes referenced with respect to the ongoing activities in Ukraine. Canada's nuclear regulator is the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, or CNSC. They regulate the use of nuclear energy and materials to protect health, safety, and security and the environment within Canada. They also implement Canada's international commitments on the peaceful use of nuclear energy and disseminate objective scientific, technical, and regulatory information to the public. On their website, you can find updates on the concerns for radiation safety with respect to the invasion of Ukraine, including relevant links to information provided by federal and international partners. They also have a vast amount of information at a variety of levels on topics of ionizing radiation and radiation protection. The Canadian Radiation Protection Association, or CRPA, is a professional organization that supports the development and implementation of radiation safety programs in Canada. Their objective is to advance the development and communication of scientific knowledge and practical means for protecting people and their environment from the harmful effects of radiation, consistent with the optimal use of radiation for the benefit of society. On their website, you can find free resources, recorded webinars, their bulletin, and a section of where they answer questions from the public. The global nuclear industry takes radiation protection very seriously. In addition to the international bodies outlined, they have operator and role-specific global organizations which help support the implementation of best practices in radiation protection. Examples of such organizations are the World Association of Nuclear Operators, the CANDU Operators Group, and the Health Physics Society. They follow and implement guidance provided by the IRPA, ICRP, and the IAEA, as this guidance is often adopted into national regulations. One role found within nuclear power plants to help monitor and implement systems of radiation protection is the health physicist. Joining us today is Mike Haynes, a consultant with the Institute. Mike worked for over 30 years as a health physicist at various nuclear reactors in Canada. He has also worked internationally and been involved with a number of the organizations mentioned in this introduction. He joins us today to answer questions about the global system of radiation protection and how it is involved in the situation in Ukraine. So with that, Mike, I would like to let you say hello and turn your camera on, and we'll move on to some interview and then take questions from the floor. Oh, just need to unmute.
Lynn,
there you go.
Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Oh, well, you can't win them all. Thanks, Lynn, for that introduction. You're right. I've actually worked with ionizing radiation since 1973. I think that's probably far beyond where most of you were born, but I have been involved primarily in the nuclear power industry, but in another number of other applications as well.
So thank you. Thanks, Mike. So just for the webinar participants, there's a few questions just to get the conversation going that I will ask Mike. And then if you wish to type in the chat room, if you're bringing questions today that you would like to ask someone that was worked in the field in this role, you go ahead and type them as we're going. And then for 10 minutes, we'll go through those questions. Hopefully people have a few. And I'll just ask them if Mike and he can answer. Or if you'd rather read them out yourself, say, I'd like to ask this question in the chat room. So to get things started, so you worked during your career as a health physicist at nuclear power plants for the most part. So what does a health physicist do, and how is that different from a medical physicist?
Well, maybe I'll start by talking about what medical physicists do, because it is, although there are overlaps with health physicists, medical physicists, first of all, are involved with medicine, whether it be therapy or diagnosis. So diagnosis would include things like CT scans, dental x-rays, et cetera, that are used as a technology to diagnose disease. Therapy is used to cure a disease, such as cancer, where you use high doses of radiation, much higher, probably 1,000 times higher typically than diagnostic doses, where you're trying to kill cells with radiation, say, as in cancer therapy, for example. Now, health physicists, on the other hand, are involved with radiation protection, preventing and limiting adverse effects of ionizing radiation exposure, whether it be from nuclear power or in research or industrial applications. These are people who understand the basic science of the interaction of ionizing radiation with living tissue, who understand the physics and the biology, but also need to understand the regulatory framework and the policies and procedures of the organizations that they work for.
Okay, and what would be some of the typical tasks or things they might have to look at within a nuclear power plant?
Well, one of them is setting policy in conjunction with senior management on radiation protection, reviewing and approving procedures involved with radiation protection, teaching staff the basics of radiation protection. This is a strength actually of the Canadian nuclear industry, where a lot of effort has gone into teaching the operating and maintenance staff safe RP practices. Investigating incidents is another one. Assessing radiation exposure. This is a subject called dosimetry, and is a bit of a specialty. Requires some very specialized knowledge about how energy is absorbed from radiation. Environmental monitoring is another area where there are some emissions from the plant, and we have to be able to assess how much that is and what the impact of that might be to the public.
Okay, thanks. So from your work, what were the key components that you saw in radiation protection in the nuclear power industry?
Well, like most things, this continues to evolve over time. I would say there's sort of two key components. One is the knowledge that I've just talked about. You have to understand the science, you have to understand the policies and procedures, et cetera. But it's also about attitude. And I would say radiation protection is a subset of the overall attitude towards safety in the nuclear power industry, or the safety culture. This is sort of the beliefs and behaviors of people with respect to safety. And some of the aspects, attributes of a strong safety culture are things like um, conservative decision making, always, uh, you know, assuming things could happen and go wrong. So you build in multiple barriers into your radiation protection program. Procedural compliance, you develop procedures, they're only as good as your compliance with those procedures. Investigating incidents to make sure that you understand the root causes of why things happen, and you take the appropriate corrective actions to prevent them from happening again. So all of these things, I think, go into being a good radiation protection professional.
So in the context of the situation in Ukraine, a lot of us, you know, that nuclear power, we know a bit about it, but maybe not the international structures that are there. How do organizations like the IAEA help to ensure that countries which use nuclear energy have proper radiation protection?
So one of the things that I think was obvious in your slide, that showed all the organizations, there is a lot of international collaboration in the nuclear industry. And this has gotten, in my opinion, better over the years. So there's exchange of information, exchange of understanding. There's a lot of site visits from one country to another, or international groups, to understand how other people do business. Um, that these organizations like the IAEA are involved in promoting good safety practices, in developing standards. One of the other things they do are something called peer evaluations, where they send a team of professionals from various countries into an operating reactor in another country and do an independent evaluation of how they're doing against defined standards. I've done a number of these myself. One that comes to mind, many years ago in Bulgaria, I went there with a team. I was the RP expert, and we had a chemistry expert and maintenance experts, operation experts, engineering people, and we looked at their overall program for a period of 3 weeks, and then wrote an extensive report about what we thought, about how they were doing and what they could do better.
And so that happens for all that would be members of like the IAEA, that they're kind of signatories. Is that how they determine?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that, but that would be my expectation. Yeah, they would be member states. And incidentally, I should say that Russia has been a member of the IAEA since its inception in 1957, as has Canada. Okay. So, there are a lot of countries involved in the IAEA.
Okay, and the IAEA, just for the people, if you're not familiar with them, on their website that they have investigated major incidents around the world as they happen, and they put out reports. So things like Fukushima and Chernobyl, that there's past reports on there as well.
For sure.
So if you're trying to follow this situation, just an average person, and you're looking at what's unfolding, there's a lot of information in the news about what's going on in the Red Forest and incidents around active nuclear reactors in Ukraine. How do you select reliable sources?
Well, the IAEA is a good start. There's also the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. A sub-organization of that is the Nuclear Energy Agency. There's a World Association of Nuclear Operators. Any of those websites will give you a good overview of the nuclear power situation in the world, and will lead you to other websites that can give you more specific information on different topics.
And as mentioned in the slide deck, the CNSC, who is involved with these international organizations as well, that they keep up-to-date links on bulletins put out by the IAEA and other
Yes,
organizations.
They certainly do. And I should say that in addition to the IAEA, the CNSC does put out periodic updates on the situation in Ukraine as well. And they are part of a group of, I mean, typically each country has their own national regulator. And I know that the CNSC is one of a group of international regulators that has offered their assistance to the regulatory authority in the Ukraine. So that's a very positive thing, and offered their expertise and advice.
And just to note to the participants that have come today that we do have a number of people from the CNSC here today. And if they do choose to speak up during the question piece from the open floor, that they're more than welcome to. So we thank them for coming today. So with that, were there any, before we open it up to the whole floor, were there any just general statements that you had wanted to make sure, like with respect to that situation, Ukraine? You've written some blog posts and things for the Institute. Was there anything you wish to share in case it doesn't come out of the questions? Or?
Well, I would just like to make the distinction between the Chernobyl site and the other operating sites in the Ukraine. Chernobyl gets a lot of headlines, of course, because of the accident in 1986, which was the most severe accident that's ever occurred in the industry, and was a terrible disaster. There's no question about it. But what you have to understand is that it is no longer an operating site. The concern is because there is still radioactive material there that is being stored in large water pools, referred to as spent fuel ponds or spent fuel bays, as we call them in this country. But it's essentially a large swimming pool that provides cooling to that fuel. The reason it needs to be cooled, we're not concerned about fission anymore, but as you showed in the slide, the fission slide, every time their fission occurs, we produce something called fission products, or sometimes called fission fragments. Now, fission products, there are literally hundreds of them. Most of the radioactivity, they're all radioactive, but most of that radioactivity decays away very quickly within a matter of, in some cases, seconds to minutes. However, some of those fission fragments have radioactive half-lives of literally hundreds of years. So they're around for a long time. They will continue to produce radioactivity in the form of both beta radiation, which are particles, electrons to be specific, and gamma rays, which are electromagnetic radiation. Those beta particles, as they are emitted from the fuel fragments, will lose their energy in the water in the form of heat. So it heats the water, and the concern is that over time that water could be boiled away and start a fire and release radioactivity. We have been assured by the IAEA and by other agencies that there is enough cooling there, even if the power were lost to it, that this is not a significant concern. Now, the other operating plants, that's a different situation. And one of them, the Zaporizhia plant in southern Ukraine, is currently under Russian control. Now, is this a concern? This is a good question. I'm not particularly concerned about it today, but there are a lot of unknowns. Obviously, you don't want to have an operating nuclear power plant where people are doing their job at gunpoint. This is not a good thing. As long as those operators are allowed to do their job in the way in which they're trained, probably everything is fine. But this is a very unpredictable situation and therefore remains a concern.
Okay, so thank you, Mike. So now we're at the portion, we have 10 minutes here to answer questions from the floor. I don't see anybody in the chat. Is there anybody willing to come on camera or type some questions out in chat? Otherwise, I can talk to Mike all day. So, okay. So I'll read this out, that there are about 90 megavoltage megaelectron volt radiation therapy machines in the Ukraine, of which about 80% are cobalt-60 machines. Apparently, there was at least one oncology hospital that was bombed. Can you make some comments about the potential radiation hazards associated with bombing of hospitals that have cobalt-60 therapy machines?
Well, that's an interesting question. I wasn't aware of that, although I'm not surprised to hear that there are cobalt-60 therapy machines. Just as an aside, Canada for many, many years has been the world's leading producer of cobalt-60 in its operating nuclear reactors to provide cobalt-60 for medical uses throughout the world. Now, if such a facility were bombed, I would imagine there is some potential for some of that radioactivity, not necessarily to be released because it's probably encased in very heavy lead shielding, but it could damage the containment of the machine to some extent. I would expect that has the potential to increase the exposure to hospital staff, to some hospital staff, to some extent. I do not see that as a significant threat to the general public, however.
So with cobalt-60, in terms of the emissions from it, is it beta and gamma?
It is. Cobalt-60 is of importance medically because it emits two gamma rays, one at 1.17, one at 1.33 MeV, so a total of 2.5 MeV, which is a fair bit of energy in nuclear terms. And it has a radiological half-life of about 5.2 years, which means it's useful for an extended period of time. So it is widely used throughout the world as a means for cancer therapy.
So in terms of, like, I know that I've seen videos and things of the testing of transportation of radioactive materials, and they show the packages that are used to transport cobalt-60 and things. So would and they're put through rigorous testing, like running it into trains and everything else. And now a bomb, of course, unless it hit right on it, there would be quite an impact there. But in terms of the cobalt-60 machine itself, would it have great structural integrity? Would that, or like, I know this isn't your area of expertise, but.
Yeah, I would expect that. I once worked with a cobalt-60 machine in research many years ago, and it certainly had great structural integrity. I couldn't speak to the present design, but it would have to have significant amount of lead shielding and some kind of steel structure, I would expect. So I would think they would have significant integrity, although I don't know the design of modern machines, to be honest.
Yeah, and do you know, are the cobalt-60, is that a solid bar that's put in there?
Yes.
Or it's not a typically dispersible material?
No, it's produced by neutron activation of a stable cobalt, which is cobalt-59.
Right.
So what you do is you bombard it with neutrons and converts a number of the cobalt-59 atoms to cobalt-60. So typically that's done in reactors in some sort of metal structure.
Okay. All right. Jacob, does that answer your question? I haven't heard. Is there anyone else that has a further question?
Hi, Lynn. This is
Hi.
Natalia.
Hi, Natalia.
Hi, Mike. Mike, you have now done quite a few interviews, both on radio and on TV. I was wondering if, looking back, if you could summarize what were the most common questions, or maybe the most common question that you've been asked, and what was your answer? Because I know folks were worried about what it could mean for Canada if something goes wrong in Ukraine.
Yeah, so I would say the most common question related to the safety of Chernobyl, the Chernobyl site. And again, this is not surprising because of the history there, but it's a very different situation now than it was at that time. That was an operating nuclear reactor, which did not have the benefit of the containment system that Lynn referred to in her earlier slide on nuclear reactor components. Containment systems are designed to contain the radioactivity, or the vast majority of the radioactivity that could be released in a severe accident. Again, Chernobyl did not have this, which would never have been allowed in the vast majority of countries around the world, including Canada. But today, even around that spent fuel pool, they do have a containment system, a modern containment structure. So even if there was a catastrophic event, and I can't imagine what it would be within that pool, most of that radioactivity would be contained. The other concern about Chernobyl has been that there is radioactivity in the environment around. There was a great release of radioactivity to the environment at the time. There was an increase in the incidence of thyroid cancer, particularly in children at the time. And so there is what's called an exclusion zone, which, if I recall, is a 30-kilometer radius around the plant, which is not accessible to the public and is contaminated with radioactive material. There was some concern that that soil was disturbed by tanks and other heavy machinery going through the area. And my understanding is, yes, that did happen, and it did increase radiation levels because of that. This would be in the air. This would increase exposure to people who were in that area, but not to the general public, not to other countries, and certainly not to Canada. There is no concern, in my opinion, about any of the nuclear sites in the Ukraine in terms of a risk to Canada.
Thank you, Mike. Amongst all other worries, to eliminate this one means a lot, actually, for, I think, many of us. So thank you for answering that.
I might just add, if I could, that there have been ongoing attempts with some success by the leader, the Director General of the IAEA, to have access to the nuclear facilities in the Ukraine. And my understanding from their updates, they're up to about update number 50, I think. And just go on the website and you'll see them. They did get some access, I think, to both Chernobyl and the operating sites, or some of the operating sites, of IAEA inspectors. This is a very good thing if they can maintain this. It's difficult. I'm sure, you know, interacting with the Russians is very challenging on this subject. But if they can get these people in there, then you have not only their expertise, but I think you would have a credible source that can communicate the status to the outside world, that people would have some trust in. And so I completely applaud their attempts to continue to do this.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for your time. At this point, it's 12:40 or it's 12:39, so we will close this portion. We do think we're going to move on if there's further questions. Thank you, Julie. That Julie works with the CNSC, and she's offered there, if you have any questions, to send a note to the email address. And we will take the question there that just came in. We're at the end of the time for the radiation protection portion. And this is part of our wellness webinar series, which usually has a 40-minute information on radiation protection, followed by 20 minutes of wellness, because of the ongoing COVID situation that many of us are remaining at home. And it's an opportunity to do something for our body or our brain to try to help, because COVID, is still impacting our lives. So I'd like to thank Mike. And I'm going to then turn things over to Mandel Fraser. And again, Mr. Klub that we have, or Ms., sorry, that we will take your question, and I will then send out, it takes a few days to process the video and do a proper write-up of the answers to the questions. And I will send a link out to everyone that signed up today with where we get that information. So thanks again. Please stay on while we transfer over to Mandel. We'll be doing some yoga and meditation. So if you can stay during your lunch break and finish, that would be appreciated. And again, thank you so much, Mike, for your time today. And Natalia, thank you.
Bye-bye.
So Mandel, are you here?
I am. Yeah, can you see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn, for asking me to be here today. I am going to guide you through just kind of a short and sweet yoga practice. And then we'll also do a meditation to finish off. And the purpose of the yoga practice is just to kind of get our bodies moving, but we'll do it on the chair. I'm assuming most of you are office workers, so I'll just kind of give you guys an opportunity to move your body while being in the chair. And then we'll do a meditation to finish off.
So thanks so much. I'm going to then stop my video and mute so that we can take it over, and right at the top of the hour, I'll come back on to say goodbye.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so I hope everybody can hear me / see me here. You're going to stay seated in your chair, but I just want you to kind of scoot your seat bones a little bit closer towards the edge of your chair. And then I just want you to close your eyes. And what I want you to do is to set maybe an idea or an intention for this practice. It might be as simple as moving the body. Maybe it's just kind of taking stock of what's going on within the body. Maybe it's just taking some of that heat out of the brain and bringing it into the body. But then what I want you to do is just take a nice deep inhale through your nose. Feel the chest rise. Feel the belly rise as you breathe in. And then we're going to exhale through the nose as well. And we're just going to do that a few times, breathing in and breathing out. Creating just this really nice ebb and flow of breath. Breath moving into the body. Breath moving out of the body. If your hands are on your thighs, just take your hands to your thighs. On your next breath in, you're just going to start to arch the spine. Feel the chest just kind of push through the shoulders there. Little tilt of your tailbone, pelvis area. Take a deep breath in here. As you breathe out, you're going to ram with your spine, tuck your chin towards your chest. We'll do that a few more times with breath. So an inhale, feel the chest open. Little tilt of the tailbone. Exhale, round the spine. Now 2 more times. Breathing in. Breathing out, rounding. Maybe even the gaze lifts as you inhale. Exhale, bring the spine. Just going to come back to a neutral spine, so nice long spine. Take a breath in. You're going to reach your arms up and overhead. As you breathe out, you're going to take your left hand along your chair or thigh area. Right hand is going to reach off towards the left side of the room. Breathe in here. Breath is just a really nice way to nourish the nervous system. Breathe out. We're going to bring some movement into this. So as you inhale, you're going to take your right pinky finger, just drop it down towards the mat. So you'll notice that the back line of the body starts to open up as you do that. Take a breath in there. Now as you breathe out, you're going to draw the elbow behind you. Take a little bend there. So then you'll notice the front line of the body opens up. So as you inhale, you're going to reach that right arm overhead, drop the pinky finger down. As you exhale, drop the shoulder back, a little bend to the elbow. 2 more times. Inhale. And exhale. Last one, breathe in. And breathe out. Just bring that right arm straight up, lengthen up the spine, inhale. We'll switch sides. Right hand comes down on your exhale, left arm comes up towards the ceiling. Take a deep breath in, get long through the spine. As you breathe out, you're going to reach off towards the right with the left hand. First couple of breaths here, we're just going to stay. Now with breath, we're going to move. So as you inhale, you're going to drop that left pinky finger down, drop the shoulder down a little. There's the inhale breath. As you exhale, you're going to draw your elbow back in space, roll the shoulder back. Inhale, extend the arm over that left ear, reach, drop the pinky finger down. Exhale, bend, drop the shoulder back. 2 more times. Inhale. And exhale. Last one, breathe in. And breathe out. Okay, take that left arm straight up, inhale. We'll also bring the right arm up as well. As you exhale, you're just going to take your hands forward slightly. So it's a little lean forward. Now really press into your feet. As you press into your feet, you're going to lift your seat bones up off the mat. You're going to come to stand. At the same time, you're going to take your arms in behind and shrug the shoulder blades together. As you inhale, arms go up and overhead. You're going to take your seat bones maybe down just a little way, or you can come right back onto your chair. There's the breath in. Press into the feet. Exhale, come all the way up. Draw the shoulder blades together. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhale. Again, coming down just a little or all the way down to your chair. Exhale, drive into the feet. Lift up. 1 more time. Inhale. And exhale. Good, stay standing. Just reach the arms up and overhead. Take a nice deep breath in. Draw your hands towards your heart center on your back. Okay, we're going to sit back down. We're going to take the right leg long. You're going to drive your heel into the floor. Toes are going to lift up. Left knee can stay bent. You're going to take an inhale. As you exhale, you're just going to reach your fingertips towards that right foot. I may have the sides mixed up and I apologize. So right foot long, left knee bent. You're going to reach your hands towards the extended leg. Now they might come close to the foot, they might come, not too close to the foot, and that's okay, but you should feel just a nice long stretch along the back line of the leg. We're going to lift back up, breathe in, and then reach, bow forward on the breath. 1 more time, inhale. And exhale. Lift the arms up and overhead, inhale. Just let the arms come down to the sides of the body, maybe even rest onto the thighs, bend into that right leg. And then we'll switch. So we'll take the left leg out long. You're going to drive your heel into the floor, toes lift up. Again, with breath, we're going to lift the arms up towards the ceiling, breathe in. On your breath out, you're going to reach your fingertips towards the toes. Lift back up, inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Do that 2 more times. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last one. Inhale. And exhale. Just slowly coming back up, reach the arms up, breathe in, bend into that left knee, take your hands down towards your thighs like that. And just for a moment here, close the eyes. Notice any sensation in the body. Yeah, maybe coming back to that intention or idea you've had for the practice. Muscles crave movement, they love to move. It's just a really nice way to hydrate the muscles. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, all you're going to do is bow the chest over the thighs, let your arms fall heavy towards the mat, and even let the head be heavy here. Take a nice deep breath in. Just stay heavy here in the upper body, breathe out. As you inhale, you're going to come on back up, just nice and slow. As you exhale, you're going to take your right foot, place it on top of the left thigh, open the right knee up. Take a breath in, sit nice and tall. Maybe this is where you stay. Or if it feels all right, as you breathe out, you might begin to move from the hips. Just going to stay right here and breathe. One more inhale. Stay for your exhale breath. As you inhale, you're going to come back up. Take your right foot back to your mat. And then all you're going to do is just take your left ear towards left shoulder. Breathe in. Slowly pick the head back up on your breath out. We'll switch sides. We're going to take that left foot now on top of the right hand. Open up the knee towards the side of the room. Might be a little, it might be a lot, depending on hip flexibility. You can stay right here, but try to keep the spine nice and long, or you can start to fold. Breathing in. Breathing out. On your next inhale breath, come back to center. Take that left foot back to your mat. Again, sitting nice and tall, we're just going to drop your right ear towards the right shoulder this time. Feel just a nice long line to the side of the neck on top of the left shoulder there. Bring the head back up to center. Take a breath in. Just stay right here, breathe out. Now we're going to move into the meditation. So just get comfortable in your chair. A little closer here. Let the arms just kind of rest onto the thighs. Eyes are closed. Coming back to the breath. Breathing in. Breathing out. So we're going to do a visualization practice just to help create some space. It's going to be a space of joy, of peace, and well-being within ourselves, even maybe when the outside world feels a little less peaceful. And as we work through this visualization today, you will be invited to imagine a day of well-being. A day where you feel safe, a day where you feel supported, a day where you feel peace. So if you're unfamiliar with doing this particular type of visualization or meditation practice, it may feel a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit challenging, especially if you live in a place of worry or uncertainty, which a lot of us do. But the power of this type of practice is that we do have that power to create a space within us, a space of joy, of happiness, of peace, even when the world might seem a little bit chaotic. So again, I invite you to get as comfortable as you can here. Comfortable seat, or if you want to get down on the floor, I invite you to lay down. And with the eyes closed, I just want you to feel a softness within the muscles of the face. And I just want you to sense your surroundings. Whether that's imagining the room that you're in, the space that you're in. Maybe it's noises you hear close or even far away. Maybe it's temperature of the room, of the skin, maybe even of the breath. Just noticing here. Now I want you to bring your awareness to your body and any sensations you may feel in your physical body. Maybe noticing first whatever is connecting with the floor beneath you, chair beneath you, seat bones, feet, those points of contact. Getting as comfortable as you can here. Let there be a sense of ease as you explore, just getting comfortable. Now I invite you to imagine yourself, see yourself well rested, well supported, and safe. When you imagine and visualize yourself in this space, what does it look like? Imagine it from the moment when you first wake up in the morning. When you open your eyes, what do you envision as a day of peace, of rest, and support? Where did you wake up? What would the day bring? What would you do? Where would you be? Know that no thought is too big. If nothing stood in your way, what could be possible? There may be some resistance to that envisioning of yourself in that space. If so, just acknowledge it. But I want you to continue to explore and imagine a day of support, of rest, of safety, and joy. Allow yourself to feel all of those feelings. Maybe there's someone there with you. Maybe there's someone in your life that's not there. Are you eating something specific? Is there certain clothes that you're wearing? Is there an activity that you're engaged in? Continue to feel supported, safe, hopeful, and now just start to deepen your breath. Become more aware of your breath. Maybe begin to take small movements in the fingers, and the toes. Take a nice deep breath in. Just want you to sigh it out through your mouth. We'll do that one more time. Deep breath in. Sigh it out through the mouth. Now, as you continue into the rest of your day, I want you to just take this space with you as you go. Take a nice deep inhale breath. Reach your arms up and overhead. We'll finish off our practice, drawing the hands in the heart center. Namaste. Thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Lynn, again, thank you for inviting me to be here today.
Thank you so much, Mandel. Really appreciate it. I think that all of us can use calming practices in these days. It's easy to let our anxieties to get ahead of us. We'd like to thank everyone, like it's over the lunch hour. Some people had to leave more quickly. So I'd like to thank those that remained right to the end, that contributed, took the time to be part of this today. And we'll have Mandel back. I just noticed that the last, I thought it was a question in the chat room that was actually a comment, a very valid comment, that in addition to what we have mentioned, there's also potential of sources being lost in the absence of this, of the security control. And then, so yes, thank you for pointing that out. And thanks to everyone again. We will have Mandel back in the future if she's willing to join us and be part of our wellness practice as well. So with that, thank you. We'll sign off for now. I'm going to stay on as it closes to make sure I don't miss anything in chat. And we'll see you again. We'll put out information about our next webinar as it develops.